Hey guys, I'm here at the Alpine Elk Refuge. It's the winter refuge at the north end of Star Valley. So I'm about an hour south of Jackson Hole, right here along the western side of the state of Wyoming. We've got several elk refuges scattered around here. There's one here in Alpine, there's one on the other side of the mountain in up the Grays River drainage. And then there's another one, the National Elk Refuge in Jackson Hole. But we get hundreds of elk that pour in here to the Alpine Refuge, and I was going to show you those elk. Looks like a lot of them have dropped their antlers, but there's still a few out there with their antlers. You can see them, they go all the way up the hillside. There's quite a few up the draw up there. Scattered all along here. They put hay out for them all winter. There's a bull right there bedded down. See if I can zoom in here and give you another handout. There's all the hay in the hay sheds. Anyway, they keep this high fence around to keep them off the highway, although they leave an opening down there because they pull in from the Idaho side. That whole mountain range there is Idaho, because I'm right along the western border. But they'll pull across. We had a kind of a dramatic thing happen here. This all is Palisades Reservoir, all this flat area out here, so that's frozen water. But this is kind of marshy, and so a lot of times the elk can cross over in certain sections of it. And they were crossing over, and a bunch of them broke through the ice, and there were about 12 or 15 elk in there. A bunch of passerby stopped, and pretty soon they had chainsaws and cutting ice, and they were breaking ice, and they were using ropes, and they pulled most of them out. A couple of them ended up dying, but they got them back over here, and eventually they were up and moving around and stuff. It's kind of cool. So the Division of Wildlife came and helped out. But, anyway, I'm gonna head up to Jackson, I think, and film some more and do some other field trips up there. I might take you to see the bighorn sheep again. So I just wanted to show you these elk. We've got a whole bunch in here right now, and once the snow starts melting in the spring, they'll head back out into the mountains into Wyoming and back into Idaho and go back where they hang out all summer up in the high country. So, see ya. All right, guys, I'm back here at the National Elk Refuge, Wildlife Refuge, really. I thought we'd check and see if the bighorn sheep are still around. I thought it was funny as usually you drive in. I brought here before, did a field trip where I showed you the bighorn sheep and showed you that they like to come up to your vehicles and lick the salt off them. And this sign here, they got an electronic sign. It says, "Keep driving slowly. I don't know if you can see it in my... Anyway, hopefully you could see that. It says keep driving slowly, prevent licking if sheep approach. Kind of funny. Kind of a funny sign to see out here. I don't know if you can see them. They're way out there, but there's elk all through out there. And there's a bunch out over here, and then there's thousands of elk back on the other side. We're going to do a field trip on Monday where the kids in the local, on the western side here, that go to school with WIVA can come in, and we're going to meet them in person and do one of those in-person field trips. So I'll film out there the elk and stuff. But hopefully there's some bighorn sheep out here, and we can go see what they're doing. I'm gonna hop in the truck and drive up into the refuge here. This road passes through this back side of the refuge because there's some private homes tucked up back in there, and so it's kind of a good way to see the wildlife is to drive in on this road. It's really cold today. It's like 10 degrees, so my hands are freezing just standing out here. Okay guys, actually just a little car went off the road right here, so I took about 10 minutes to pull them out, some tourists from Europe. So slid on the ice and went right off the road because they were trying to pull off and watch these sheep. Here's some bighorn sheep in here. I'm just gonna walk up, try not to bother them, but there's a whole group of them right here. So these sheep pull down out of the mountains, and they'll be all along this road in the winter. It's kind of cool to be here this close to them. And we're not supposed to bother them, so I don't know. I don't want to get too close. And normally I wouldn't walk up to them like this, but since we're doing a field trip. You can see that one there digging down for some grass. This is a bachelor herd, is what they'll call them, of male sheep. There's a couple of pretty big ones in there. I should have brought my gloves. I'm freezing. My hands are cold. It's probably, my truck says it's just below 10 degrees, but there's one. You can see his horns are getting kind of old and broken off there. On the ends, right on the tips. And there's a younger one right next to him. It's got nice horns without a lot of breaks and divots in them from fighting and hitting each other. There's another old one. He's got a big old notch in his horn right there in the back, in the middle. There's a big, thick one. Look at that one. Look how thick his horns are. That's a massive ram right there. Oh, bummer. Kind of spooked him. Well, I don't want to bother these guys too much, so I'm gonna hop back in the truck, get my hands unfrozen. They're literally burning because they're so cold. It has to be 0 or below 0 right now. It's pretty cool. All right, let's go see if we can find some more. So I came down this road. I was way down at the end of that ridge when I was filming those bighorn sheep. I didn't see any more sheep, but here's one of the private residences back in here, and then there's a couple of others tucked back up in here. But this is the National Elk Refuge. It goes all the way down to Jackson Hole on the back side of this, and it takes in that ridge. And then it's all of this as far as you can see, and then up over those hills and all the way back that way. It's just thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land that the federal government started buying over 100 years ago, and then they've kept adding to it, and they put up high fences along the highway, but they leave openings for the animals to come in. And then they just feed them throughout here, mainly on the other side of that ridge there, through the winter. But I've read that there's thousands and thousands of elk that just pour in here from the different mountain ranges. Those are the Grand Tetons right there. You can't see the cool jagged peaks because the clouds are low on it. Maybe it'll open up later here today, but they're kind of locked in by clouds. But that's Teton National Park, all those mountains there and at the base of it, and then Yellowstone is just up north. But I thought I'd show you the refuge and just how big it is from this view here. But it's as far as you can see and farther over the mountain ridge, over those hills there and so forth. So it'd be kind of cool to have a little ranch house, one of these ranch houses here, tucked in right against the refuge. Just watch the animals come in and out through the fall and then back out in the spring. Anyway, we'll go look at those bighorn sheep one more time and then probably call this field trip good. Coyote just ran across the road here at the refuge. He came running down out of the foothills. Looks like he's feeding on some kind of carcass there. Just took a bite out of it, just chewing on it. Wish I could zoom in better on my camera. So that's kind of cool. He just literally ran right across the road in front of me while I was looking up some bighorn sheep facts on my phone. I saw a flash of movement and he ran right across in front of us. That's pretty cool. There's wildlife everywhere around here. If you hang out long enough, you're going to see antelope, bighorn sheep, elk, deer, coyotes, eagles, geese, ducks. Alright, one last little visit here to these bighorn. I looked up some facts and I was just going to share them with you while I film these sheep. Some cars pulling up here. But they like to group up. The females are group up in herds of 5 to 15. And then they zoom in while I'm talking so you can kind of see them. So they like to be in groups of 5 to 15, the females, and the males will be in groups of 2 to 5. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So that's kind of cool. Although in the winter, the females will group up into like groups of maybe up to 100 or so. The rams, when they're fighting with each other, when they're competing for females in the fall, they'll ram each other running up to 20 miles per hour. So they hit each other in the head, in the foreheads with these horns and fight over the females in the fall. In the 1800s, they estimate there were a couple million or close to, and now they're down to about 70,000 or so. They don't really have any real threats from predators like mountain lions and stuff like that, but they can get diseases from livestock and they can run out of food. So that's their main problem, is running out of forage, especially in the winter, because a lot of these mountain valleys are filling with homes now and stuff like that, and less farming and ranching, then they tend to run out of food. So these refuges are critical. They like to eat grasses in the summer, but in the winter they'll feed off of sagebrush and more woody type plants. So their diet changes in the winter unless they have refuges like this that have some grass for them. The males are anywhere from 150 to 300 pounds, and more than likely the females are down towards that lighter end. The males tend to be heavier in the body and stuff, especially as they grow older. Their horns will grow up to 30 inches long as they curl, and the circumference in the thickest part it can be up to about 15 inches or more. So if you measured your leg, the circumference of your leg, if it's around 15 inches, that might be that's about how big their horn is, how thick their horn is. The rams, the males, will live up to 9 to 12 years, and the females often will live longer, 10 to 14 years or so. So, kind of interesting. They're an interesting animal. I don't know what else. I think that might be it. You can look up some cool facts and videos if you want about bighorn sheep. Look up for some that are fighting. It's kind of cool to see them run and then crack horns together. Maybe have your parents help you find some video of some bighorn sheep knocking heads together. It's pretty exciting. What I read is you can hear the sound of the crack of their horns up to a mile away, because they get going about 20 miles an hour and they can ram into each other. Some of those fights, they'll go off and on between two rams for, they said, sometimes up to 24 hours. But sometimes it'll last for minutes, and other times it lasts for hours and hours, just that fighting off and on, trying to establish their dominance. So. One more little look here. These sheep, they're just kind of hanging out, bedded down for the afternoon, for the day. And I'm going to call that good, and that'll probably end this field trip, unless I happen to see some other wildlife as I pass through the canyon. I thought I saw a mountain goat, so I might try and stop on the way back if it's down low and film some more. But otherwise, thanks for coming on this field trip. Saw a lot of wildlife today, and I'll see you next time. Hey guys, I'm up here up the Snake River Canyon, about not halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way from Star Valley, where I live, to Jackson Hole. And there's another elk refuge back in here that I forgot about. I can't remember if it's called the Fall River, but this is the Fall River Road that tucks up back in here. The Snake River runs from there up by Jackson through this canyon here. But there's hundreds of elk out here in this little refuge tucked back in here. I don't know if you can see it. Well, you can see them out there, but I'll try and zoom in. But so each one of these refuges tucked back up in different places here in western Wyoming just has hundreds of elk and sometimes thousands of elk pour into them. So the highway actually cuts through those trees, and often when we're driving at night we'll have to slow down and stop real quick because there's elk, because they like to go down to the Snake River and get water and come back up. So even when it's not winter, when it's the fall and stuff, sometimes they'll pull down out of these mountains to go down to the river to get water. And so this little stretch of road through here is kind of dangerous. Almost hit an elk several times. Up the canyon too, one time we came to a complete stop. There was a white mountain goat just standing there right in the road licking salt off the road or something, and almost hit it. Nose of the car came right up to it. So luckily nobody was behind me or they would have smashed into me. But you see all those elk out there? There's at least hundreds out there. Quite a few. So anyway, Snake River Canyon's full of animals, especially during the winter when we pull them down to feed them in these little refuges.